Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of
Hello.
My name is Hans,
I'm Edward.
and we are your hosts for now and forevermore.
Or until, I don't know, I've used all of them so much, but I guess until one of us just decides to quit because we have much better prospects waiting for us. You know?
Yeah. I suppose we could go with that. Not that we're ever going to quit. Hey, Edward.
Nah. We ain't
So,
quitters.
we had an initial discussion just before this about how this is technically an April Fool's episode. And how I was like, well, not really. It's not really coming out on the 1st of April. And then that made us think about how there hasn't really been any April Fool's news. And I think it's just because the world is in such a state right now that nobody really wants to go down the path of believing something that could be too good to be true or that is just not nice. Because the last 3 years have proven that even the weirdest of news can be true.
Yeah.
Pandemic and wars notwithstanding.
Yep.
Well, welcome
Gosh.
to Gettle episode 85. If you've been along for the journey thus far, thank you so much. To any of our newer listeners, thank you again for giving us a try and listening to what we have to say. So for today's episode, we're going to be looking at, in particular, video game subscriptions and whether or not we think that they are sustainable, both for the companies as well as us as consumers. I mean, goodness knows that almost every piece of software out there is moving towards some sort of a subscription-based system. I mean, you can barely do anything anymore without having to be subscribed to something. I mean, just the other day, what was I looking at? It was something absolutely ridiculous, and I just thought to myself, "What?" I think it was it's this app called Transmit, which I use for updating websites, in the back end. And you can buy it outright for $40 directly through their website. But if you download it through the Mac App Store, there is only a subscription option. You can't buy it. And I was
That's
like,
odd.
well, I already have a code, so I thought, let me download the Mac OS version from the App Store, and maybe I can put my code in there somewhere. Nope. There is literally zero option. It is just for subscription. I mean, I assume it's because Mac and Apple users are cash cows. So that would be the only real...
Mobile users are cash cows.
Well, either way, it's just indicative of where we're moving. Look, in a way, what I've just mentioned now is a whole bigger discussion of Apple's App Store and, policies and things, but that's for another day. Today, we're talking specifically about the sustainability of video game subscriptions, of which there are 3 primary ones and then a lot of, I suppose, superlative ones. In particular, we're speaking about Xbox Live, PlayStation Plus, and Nintendo Online. These are the 3 major big ones from the 3 biggest gaming brands, I would say, that everybody knows from a console and just general gaming perspective. And what's interesting about it is, for the longest time, Game Pass has sort of led the pack. Now, Game Pass is ever so slightly different to Xbox Live Gold, which used to just be a service that you subscribe to, and it would give you access to the online multiplayer for games, and then as well as free games every once a month. PlayStation eventually sort of copied that model, and they had PlayStation Plus, which offered very, very similar, in almost every way to Xbox Live Gold. And then there's Nintendo Online, which nobody really knows what that's actually about. So
no, it's a mess.
It doesn't really offer you anything other than, look, I suppose that's a whole other can of worms, because they do offer you the ability to download emulations of their own software, like older games, like 3DS and Game Boy and stuff like that. However, it's done very poorly, and again, that's a whole different discussion. Which again, I just want to rein this back into the whole subscription thing. Okay, we'll maybe talk about those things a bit later. So the reason why we want to talk about this now is because the gaming subscription model is reaching fever pitch. So we've now spoken about the original models for these things, and then over time they've sort of molded and evolved, whereby, for example, with Xbox, they release an all-you-can-eat buffet gaming service called Game Pass, which is incorporated into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which includes Xbox Live Gold, and it's all like one nice big package for only, I think it's $15 a month, which is about 170 Rand a month. It's actually less now. They've actually reduced the price, incredibly so.
Yeah.
And then that gives you access to over 300 video games that you can at any time download to your console and then play. Of course, you do need an internet connection to authenticate that you have a valid Game Pass subscription. And then also in available locations allows you to play Xbox Cloud, where you can stream games to your mobile phone or even your console directly via the internet. Now, it's important for me to mention these things because when we look at PlayStation have something called PS Plus and then PlayStation Now. Now,
Yeah.
PlayStation Now is something that has been very exclusive for a very long time. It's mostly just been available in first world nations such as the UK, America, and I think Japan. It's very limited, but essentially the whole crux behind it is that unlike Game Pass, where you can download a full copy of your game to your machine and then you play it locally, PS Now was all about you stream the video game. It kind of worked like Google Stadia, right?
Yeah.
So what's interesting now, with Game Pass being a proper competitor for the last several years and making a lot of waves in the industry, including incredible subscriber growth, and people just, it's really just very good value. We've actually spoken about this before in episode 33. If you'd like to go and listen to it, by all means, please do. It really just is an incredible value for money service that is also weirdly somewhat platform agnostic, because if you have a subscription, you can play on PC, you can play on console, and you can play on mobile, especially if it's cloud gaming enabled, your particular games.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're going to get to the discussion in a bit. We've just got to lay the groundwork for all of this.
Yeah, pretty much just
Yeah.
lay the groundwork.
Lay the groundwork. So what is interesting is there's been a lot of rumors of PlayStation Spartacus over the last couple of months. And everyone has called it the Xbox Game Pass competitor. Now, Sony have technically revealed it now as basically a new version of PlayStation Plus, whereby it's PlayStation Plus that you know and love, but now they've taken PS Now and they've merged it into one service, and then they have different tiers, depending on also, once again, where you are in the world, because, PlayStation Now is not available everywhere. So it's far more confusing, in my personal opinion, at least at the start, versus the Game Pass model, which is very much just, you buy it, you have access to all of these games. If they're cloud enabled, awesome. If not, no worries. You can still play them. You can download them.
Yeah.
Whereas Sony's whole new PlayStation Plus thing has there's a plus version, there's a deluxe model, there's a ultimate variant. I don't know. There's so many different versions. And essentially the way it works is that they're going to be offering over 700 titles, as far as I understand. Of which that also includes streaming only. And I feel that's very unusual and a little bit disingenuous, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a bit disingenuous because, the messaging here is you have access to 700 games, but do you really, though? Like, if you're not in a PS Now country, do you really have access to 700 games? The answer is no, you don't. You only have access to the games that you can technically download to your console. Now, with that in mind, and we will get into this a little bit more detail as we discuss these services and what we think about them, is how PlayStation is foregoing the addition of launching first-party titles day and date on the service, which once again goes against what Microsoft is doing, where, like Halo Infinite, for example, launched day and date for anybody who was a Game Pass subscriber. And that's basically for all of Xbox's first-party titles. Now, Sony's argument for this is it's quality over quantity, which is such a bullshit excuse because that is not the case. It's all about screwing over the consumer. And I feel very strongly about this because I have watched the PlayStation brand over the last several years, specifically with the launch of the PlayStation 5, move into we're going to get as much out of you as possible instead of offering you value-added services. Do you agree with me, Edward? How do you feel about it?
No, fully. The thing is, when Phil Spencer himself said that Game Pass is sustainable, he explained that you can just look at the numbers. Okay, so the main argument here is that Sony games, if you pay a fraction of the price for them, you won't get the same quality out of them as you would say what you get now for God of War, Last of Us, and whatnot. Um, and that's not true, because as Phil Spencer said, that even though you only pay a fraction of the price, so many more millions of people are paying that price. And not only that, it's not taking away from the in-game sales. It's the launch day sales. It's actually boosting them. And this is all on Xbox Wired. You can find that on the internet if you just Google. It's so funny to me that people believe the rhetoric that it's the whole quality over quantity argument. If there is literally no substance to it. And that's how I feel. I'm actually quite miffed about the whole official explanation about it, because I
Well,
feel like they're lying to us.
of course
I
they
feel
are,
like they're
Ed.
taking
Look,
customers for a fool.
look. Let's break it down a little bit as well, right? So, PlayStation are the company that have been advocating for the $10 increase per title for next gen.
Yes.
They're the only one of the big gaming brands that are doing so. And of course, naturally, the other institutions are following suit. Why not? I mean, if PlayStation is doing it, one of the biggest ones, and they're forcing it even on their first party titles, you'd be stupid as Ubisoft or Take-Two or any of the other variety of studios to not also do it. Now, the claim at the time is because they want to earn more money from sales of video games. But where that begins to fall apart is through DLC. So almost every single game out there has some form of DLC. Even the single standalone titles will often have DLC in the form of new levels or missions or maybe even a standalone story. So there are means and ways of earning more money in terms without actually increasing the base price of a video game. So that then,
Yeah.
of course, means that the rationale behind increasing that base price is immediately false. Okay? Don't get me wrong, it's fine to want to give developers more money and so on and so forth, but don't say that you absolutely have to do it. You know, it's not necessary. There are so many other ways of making money. For example, Apex Legends is a game that I thoroughly enjoy. That game is free, but it earns billions of dollars monthly because it has cosmetics and things that you can buy and enjoy within the game. So the possibility
Yeah.
exists for revenue streams from, from other means to generate revenue. So there's no need to increase the base cost. Also, by a meager $10, it's not, I mean, if a game sells 500,000 copies, that's maybe an extra 5 million. In the grand scheme of things, where games are costing like 150, 300 million, it's minuscule, really, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
What isn't minuscule, and this is what I think is most interesting, is Sony chose to add $10 to all of their base games, where Microsoft chose the exact opposite. Leave their first party titles at the original price, but then give you the option of using that $10 that you would have used to buy a new title for Game Pass.
Yeah.
And in so doing, they have created a multi-billion-dollar industry. It is no secret that Game Pass earns Microsoft billions of dollars a month. You know, now when you look at that now from that perspective, that is incredibly sustainable. So the argument that PlayStation keeps making about how adding first-party titles to the subscription service would be to their detriment, Microsoft's business model literally proves that as false.
Exactly.
I mean, just you those of you who are listening, you can do an easy calculation. The rough estimate is it's roughly 20 million, 25 million subscribers, and if each of them pay a minimum of $10 a month, just a minimum, I mean, take 25, that's at least $250 million a month. 4 months, that's
Yeah.
$1 billion. I mean, I'm pretty sure Sony's not making even 250 million a month off of a first party title. So,
Yeah. Pretty much. Or rather, they are, but they are doing it through dubious ways. In that selling multiple versions of the same game.
Yeah, so see, their whole business model is, with all due respect, it's antiquated. And perhaps this comes
Yeah.
down to leadership. So Microsoft has Satya Nadella, who took over from Bill Gates, and this man has transformed the Microsoft company into
Yeah.
one that is almost cloud first. And in many respects, that's just it's been incredibly good for Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft's major earnings nowadays actually come from their Azure cloud platform. So in his mind, I would imagine when he had a meeting with Phil Spencer, he was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's make a subscription service that relies on our cloud services. It's a win-win situation. You have the tech and the platform. Why not do it? Then by doing so, you now create a new revenue stream, because $15 a month is nothing. If I even use it as rands, at even 150 rand a year, over a full year, that's 1,800 rand. That's the price of one PlayStation first-party title.
Yeah.
Obviously depending on
In a
which
full
version
year.
of the one you get, right? So in one
Yeah.
entire year of Game Pass is only equal to one PlayStation first-party title. It boggles the mind then why on earth Sony would think that is sustainable. So as a matter of fact, I would actually then argue the opposite of what this entire discussion was about, is how subscriptions are absolutely sustainable. It's the current antiquated method of selling software that is not sustainable, in my personal opinion. More so because, granted, we know Sony have a majority of gamers, the clientele. They were the most popular brand for a long time, since PS4 and now into PS5. And surely, people who have that form of brand loyalty would choose to rather buy things on PlayStation, and that's, their own prerogative.
Yeah.
But the mindset is changing, because I'm somebody who's privileged. I'm privileged enough that I have a very good job and I earn good money, where I don't really have to worry about buying the games that I want. I will buy them when I want them, when I feel like it, whether it's a super collector's edition or the normal version. But at the same time, I'm like, why do I need to? Why do I need to spend 2,000 Rand for one game when I can use 2,000 Rand on a subscription service that will give me 300 plus games that I can enjoy whenever I want, as well as first-party titles? So the whole thing of Sony being like, no, we're not going to do it because it's not sustainable and it's going to eat into our profits, blah, 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 that's very antiquated. It's a very old way of thinking, and it does currently still work. So, for example, Horizon Forbidden West sold incredibly well. It's one of the fastest selling PlayStation 5 titles, naturally, because it was done for the new generation. But again, it was $10 more than a conventional exclusive, and it's not available anywhere else other than PlayStation 5 at the moment. So there's no PC support yet, because we all know that Sony's MO is to release a port 6 months down the line with extra features, and then add those extra features to the PlayStation 5 version as well, and then charge you an extra $10 to $15 yet again for the same title, but now the fully complete version.
To be fair, it is actually available for PS4.
No, I meant PC,
listen to this.
not PS4. Oh, yeah.
Oh. Listen to this, though. And this is where this is the kind of, I almost swore, the kind of crappy business dealings Sony has going on.
Look, just before you continue, I just want to make this very clear quickly. We're not trying to bash PlayStation here or Sony. I'm a huge fan.
No.
I've been thoroughly enjoying Horizon Zero Dawn, and I love the platform, and the DualSense is amazing. But like, we have to also look at things realistically and from an unbiased perspective. And right now, what Sony is doing doesn't make me happy as a consumer. I'm not happy with them right now. And this is where, us talking about these services is really coming into play, because Microsoft is setting the standard, and Microsoft is dropping, and PlayStation is still dropping the ball instead of following what is already working.
What I was getting at is Guerrilla Games is very much consumer-centric, which I really like, which is weird because there are a first-party studio, considering what we just said. Anyway, because they are consumer-centric, they decided they'll offer both versions of the game regardless of which console copy you buy. So if you buy the PS4 copy, you will get a free upgrade to PS5.
That
if
is
you buy the
so
PS5
rare.
copy,
I mean, I don't
Yes.
want to
I,
interject here, but that means, or that is one of the only games to come out to actually offer that, because there's been so many that released on PS4 that had paid for upgrades from Sony
yep.
in order to get the
Full
PS5
price
versions. And
upgrades.
and like one of the main ones is Ghost of Tsushima, which still irritates
Yep.
me today, because that should have just been given a free upgrade, given how it came out a month before the PlayStation 5 released. Then it's things
Yeah.
like the Uncharted collection, which again does exactly the same thing. If you own the previous one, you have to now pay an upgrade fee for PS5. That is such
Mm-hmm.
an anti-consumer thing to do. Like, yes, I have the new machine. I have invested my money into your ecosystem once again with new hardware, which costs quite a bit of money. But now I'm being penalized for staying with you? It doesn't
Yep.
make sense to me. And that's where Microsoft just doesn't do that. You know, you buy a game, they have smart delivery. It doesn't matter what platform you're using, or you're going to get the best version.
Yeah, the
Because
game
they
is
don't
the
believe
game.
in charging you for it. Sorry, Edward.
Exactly.
It's just.
No, I get that. But listen to this. Because of the Sony Marketplace rules, the Sony Store, I think it's called lately, because of the rules, the PS4 copy of the game was still $10 less on the official store that you bought it on. So that means if you went on your PlayStation 5 console and you search for the PS4 copy of the game, which includes the PS5 copy, you would pay $10 less. But people didn't get this because there are two versions of it on the PS Store.
Yeah, but do you know why?
So
It's because exactly what I said. Because
yeah,
Sony have ingrained it into their
their
supporters,
infrastructure.
or their gamers, rather, I should rather say, that
Mm.
if you want the PlayStation 5 version of it, you have to get the PlayStation 5 version of the game, because
Yes,
every other game that exists doesn't allow upgrades.
the free
As in,
upgrade. Yeah.
like no, look, there's more to it than that, right? And this follows through to third-party titles as well. So
Mm.
there's been a lot of issues in terms of how Sony has actually integrated the system, in the sense of, if you did buy a game on PS4 and now a PlayStation 5 version exists, the
Mhm.
issue here is that, first of all, you have to pay, right? You've got to pay for an upgrade to basically unlock additional graphical settings. That's how it feels, at any rate.
Yep.
But then you also have to download a full-on new copy of the game, because everything about the code bases as well as the SKUs are different on the storefront. So
Yep.
that's why a PS4 copy of Ghost of Tsushima will remain a PS4 copy. And then if you want the PS5 upgrade, when you buy that upgrade, you're essentially unlocking a key to the PS5 SKU of the product, because
Yeah.
it shares a different code base, and it operates with the system differently. And that's also why there's this huge issue of save game transfers, where if you have a game on the PS4, you have to, I think it's upload it first to the cloud, then delete it, then no. So wait. Sorry. You have to, let's say you've bought Ghost of Tsushima for PS5 and you've downloaded it into your PS5. If you want your PS4 save game, you have to re-download the PS4 game, then copy it to the I think it's the cloud storage or to the internal memory or something, and then copy it back for your PS5 game. It's an absolute mess. And this is where, again, and I know this is not the topic of today's discussion, but it's where we can really take our hat off to Microsoft Smart Delivery, where this stuff just happens without you thinking about it. Now, Smart Delivery is not perfect, okay? It has its own, issues every now and again, but for 99% of the time, it just works. You click download, you get the version that is applicable to your console, and the save file, the save file is universal. It doesn't matter which version of the game you have. It just in the cloud and comes down from the cloud, and you play.
It's and that whole, I'm not sure what to call it, but that whole mantra, it translates into Game Pass, and it translates into
yes.
Well, yeah, Game Pass. I want to say Game Pass Ultimate, but it's the same product.
Well, I mean, it's basically this. Look, so Game Pass itself doesn't give you access to Xbox Live Gold, right? You can choose to just have Game Pass. No, the standard one.
Yes.
The standard
sorry,
one. Yeah,
sorry,
the standard one.
Yeah.
So if you just have Game Pass, you have access to all the games. And this is a definite criticism of Microsoft's platform right now. So despite having really good ways forward. Like they're really pushing this whole
Mm.
subscription thing in a very good way, at least from the benefit of a gamer. Where Microsoft still falls short is with Xbox Live Gold. They've only just recently allowed multiplayer free-to-play titles free access to Xbox Live, meaning that before this change, if you downloaded, let's say, something like Apex Legends, but you didn't subscribe to Xbox Live Gold, you couldn't play because you would
Yeah.
need gold to give your console access to essentially the Microsoft Xbox Live multiplayer network. It's
Yeah.
been a contentious issue for a long time, and I understand why, because that is very basic functionality that shouldn't be behind a pay gate. It shouldn't be behind a paywall. So here's hoping that with the success of Game Pass, that Microsoft will eventually take that away. With that said, and this is just from personal experience and things that you have read, having always charged people for Xbox Live Gold has honestly meant that they've had far less downtime, and in many respects, it is superior to PlayStation Network, which has been
Yeah.
free in terms of online capability. The plus portion of it was mostly for the games more than anything else.
Yeah. The games and the
Um,
cloud saves.
but you see, now isn't that an interesting way to look at it? Isn't it interesting how PlayStation, in some respects, actually had it down pat? Their subscription
Yeah.
service was only for if you wanted cloud storage and extra games per month, but you didn't need it to play online. Whereas Microsoft, on the other hand, now this is speaking before Game Pass, before the new PlayStation Plus. Whereas
Yeah.
Microsoft had Xbox Live Gold, and you absolutely needed that. Otherwise, you just couldn't play online. And if you didn't play online, understand that today's day and age is very different to even being 10 years ago. So maybe 10 years ago, who cares if you played online or not? You just buy your first party single player titles and enjoy yourself.
Well,
But
Halo would
it is,
differ.
yeah, sure. I mean, look, it is part of this discussion because it still speaks to subscriptions. Now, although perhaps Sony may have had a bit of an edge, they've completely, in my opinion, sort of lost their way going forward now. Because Game Pass has shown that the model works. The model for eat as much as you want games that can be downloaded to your console, or if you're in a supported region, streamed to a device like your PC or your phone, or having a ubiquitous subscription, meaning this one subscription also works on PC if you're a PC user, which is really wonderful because nobody else does that.
Yep.
They've looked at this model, with first-party titles on day and date and so on, and they've just been like, nah, fam, we're going to do our own thing. And they've created a product that I personally am not going to subscribe to. Okay. Now let's go down a bit of a different rabbit hole again. Let's talk about backwards compatibility and preservation of video games as art, which would actually make a fascinating discussion at a later stage, but we'll just do a very brief look at it right now. So Microsoft have, because of Xbox Game Pass, for the most part, committed to the preservation of older games as a form of art. In this sense, when you subscribe to Xbox Game Pass, as part of these 300 plus titles that you can download and enjoy, it's everything from the original Xbox through to the Xbox Series console. So 4 generations of video games you can enjoy. I have myself, using Xbox Game Pass, actually downloaded Cameo Elements of Power from Rare, which is still one of my favorite platforming games, just because even today, it's just so beautiful. If anyone has an Xbox out there and you've got Game Pass, just do yourself a favor and treat yourself by just playing a little bit of it. Sure, it's dated, obviously, but visually, it's still superb. Anyway, I digress. So what's interesting about that, though, is that the ability for me to do that exists, and although I don't use it often, it's nice that it's there. Now, that means that for me, at any rate, and I think for a lot of users, Game Pass's real potential lies in the new, in these wonderful indie titles that come to the service, or even some of the bigger titles. Like, I think I stand to be corrected, but I'm pretty sure The Witcher 3 was on Game Pass for quite some time. So I like it because a lot of the times newer stuff comes to it as well. Stuff that might be launching day and date on other platforms that you'd have to pay full price for, but now are part of Game Pass. And that for me is a bigger draw than the old catalog. But having the older catalog is really nice. And I think That's where Nintendo, for example, is where their service comes into play, because they also don't offer anything in terms of new stuff. Their service is predominantly so that you can play online, like Xbox Live Gold, but then they give you access to their old databases for emulation. So you can play like
Yeah.
old Game Boy games and old Nintendo 64 games and things like that, where they are technically downloaded to your console, and you can play them using their version of an emulator, or their official emulator, because Nintendo likes to cancel everybody who tries anything else. So that's an interesting way
Yep.
as well. And what is most interesting about that now, and that's again a different discussion altogether, is how Nintendo relies on nostalgia for their business to thrive. A lot of their huge games are old franchises that have been reborn or remastered or rebooted for modern audiences, and people just lap it up.
Yep.
Now, that's
It's actually
totally
bad.
different in many respects, to Xbox and PlayStation. Although PlayStation does do it to a degree. They are notorious for releasing a game and then 2 years later releasing the enhanced version, which is almost exactly the same as the original, just slightly up-resed, I guess, for the newer machine, or whatever the case is that is happening at the time. I don't like it. I don't like that. I feel it's doing a disservice to customers. But again, as we've discussed before, that's their antiquated means of thinking. Right? It's not
Yeah.
a forward-thinking subscription approach.
Yeah,
Okay,
pretty
Ed?
much. Another thing, we touched upon this yesterday. Another thing I really want to mention about one of my biggest issues with PS Plus. Now, before I get into that, I just want to basically explain what the 3 tiers are, because there are technically 4 tiers,
Yes,
but there are
please do,
3.
because I know for a fact that as we mentioned now in this episode so far, there's PS Now.
Mm.
Now, because PS Now is not
Yes.
available in certain locations, it now completely upends this whole tier system. So
Yeah,
to take
so
look to
essentially,
take us through it, and in particular, make sure you mention the difference between downloading and streaming and stuff, because I want to touch
yeah,
on this
no,
again as soon as you're
that's why
done. Yeah,
there are
yeah,
technically 4
yeah,
tiers. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
basically,
yeah.
current PS Plus members, their subscriptions will change to PS Plus Essential, which is the cheapest tier. Pricing is the same, offerings the same.
How
That
much is that?
includes
$10?
it's $10 monthly in the US.
Okay.
So I think that's what, €9 and whatever
So it's
is the
about
equivalent in
150
Japan.
rand, 180 rand a month. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about. Um, that includes 2 downloadable games. It includes the usual discounts, the cloud storage, and multiplayer online access. So that doesn't change. Then you get the PS Plus Extra, which is the new tier, the middle tier, you can call it. That includes backwards compatibility for PS4 games streaming and downloading, which means PS Plus Extra members will get an automatic access to 400 PS4 games. Well,
Okay,
PS4
that's
and
nice.
PS5 games.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the Game Pass. That's the Game Pass element of all of this.
Okay.
And that's it, including the essential tier benefits. Then you get the most expensive one, which is called the PS Plus Premium. Okay, so that's the 3rd tier, and you get all the previous benefits, but you also get
How much
we
is it?
mentioned before. PS Extra is $15 a month, which is the same as Game Pass Ultimate.
Game Pass Ultimate, yeah.
Yes, and then PS Plus Premium is $18 a month, and this includes PS3 games and some PSP, PS2, and PlayStation 1 games. 340 extra.
But those PS3 games are streaming only, correct? Whereas the others can be downloaded and played.
Yes. So the official statement is that the PS3 games available via cloud streaming, and a catalog of beloved classic games available in both streaming and download options. So something tells me some of those will be streaming only and some of them will not.
Okay.
But also, now the premium comes with the addition of PS Now. It includes the cloud streaming aspect, but only in the selected regions. For regions that do not have PS Now, will get a PS Plus Deluxe option instead, which will cost less in some scenarios. So I'm not sure what this means.
So
No one knows what
I'm
this
I'm
means.
assuming that what they're saying there is, oh, it's weird because
It's
why even
super weird.
why even bother? Oh no, but hang on. I think you're forgetting one thing here. You're forgetting something here, and this is a point of contention for me with this whole PlayStation Plus thing. I stand to be corrected
And
here, but my understanding is only the ultimate tier gives you paid for free trials.
yeah, I was getting to that. So, and it also includes time, and it's time limited free trials.
So
So
the
it's not
reason
even
why,
a fact.
okay, why do you dislike that, Edward? Please, because I have
I
lots to
mean,
say about
I
this.
I guess it's obvious. Number one, because it's a time limited trial, which means similarly how you
It's a
get
demo.
10-hour demos
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
EA Plus Premium, you'll get the same with this. In other words, you get the demo, but you can only play 10 hours of it, and then it's done. You can't go
Yeah.
back to it, or however long they offer. It's not
Oh,
stated,
I mean,
but they
I
do
would
state
like
it's
to
time
think
limited.
that your save file would transfer over to the title if
Yeah, I
you
mean,
bought
that's.
it or something.
I guess that goes
Um,
without saying, yes.
but my
But
whole issue
even
with
then,
this, is why are glorified demos locked to the premium and deluxe tiers? Explain to me why I need to pay extra for a demo.
yeah, it's.
That is
And
anti-consumer once
and
again. I'm sorry, but
not only a demo, it's literally just a bit you can play for a little bit.
look, even
That's the
even
worst
if
part of
it's
it.
even if it's a timed trial, right? Like EA Access. Okay,
Mm.
bear in mind, EA Access is cheap. Actually, it's
Yeah,
bundled with Game Pass. So one more reason why Game Pass is look, let's assume you didn't have Game Pass, right? EA Access is only like
yeah,
$5 a month. It's like $50. Then you have access
yeah,
to EA's titles and their trials. And their trials, in my personal opinion, are pretty generous. Playing a game for 10 hours is long,
yeah,
especially for certain games that might not even be that long. Like, sure, some games have much shorter time trials for obvious reasons. I mean, there's no point in giving somebody 10 hours to play a game that only lasts for 5. So those kinds of games would maybe have like a 1-hour trial. The whole point that I'm getting at here, though, is EA may have set that as a precedent for their service, whereby you have longer times to trial a game before you can buy it. But I don't feel that that should be locked behind a paywall to a higher tier as a feature or a benefit for PlayStation Plus.
yeah,
You're now telling me as the consumer that we're going to charge you to demo the game.
yeah.
What?
Like number one, the demo is locked behind the most expensive tier, whereas with EA of all companies, you get it in the cheapest tier.
Yeah.
And number two, it's behind a paid tier anyway. That's my biggest gripe with all of this, let alone the pricing and the stupid tiering and the regional issues, is the fact that you just have to
But
pay for a demo.
the thing is, this is the only reason why the deluxe tier exists. Because effectively, Ultimate and Deluxe are no different. It's just that because Deluxe is technically... Sorry, I'm getting the terminology confused here. Not Ultimate. Is it Plus? Because it's
You get
Essential Plus.
Essential, Extra, and Premium.
Okay, so Deluxe is the same as Premium minus PS Now.
Yes.
So then what is the differentiating factor between Extra and Deluxe? It's game demos, right?
No, the Extra and Deluxe, the differentiating factor is the PS3, PSP, and PS2 games.
Okay, fair enough. It's okay. That makes it a lot better, I suppose, that you have now access. Look, I'm a fan. I cannot wait to hopefully, like, possibly, look, I will try the service out. I'm curious about it more than anything else.
Of course.
But like, imagine downloading and booting up the PlayStation 2 version of SSX Tricky. I mean, hello, that's going to be incredible memories, like,
Man,
right there,
yeah, like if
or even
they
Metal Gear
have
Solid
Legend
if
of
it's on the
Dragoon,
service.
if they have Legend of Dragoon in there, I will pay the price just to play that game. But it still bothers me that this is double the price of
Mm,
Xbox Game Pass, who already offers all of the previous generations of games for one single price, and
yes.
it's just an odd
So
decision.
okay. So let's look at them now. Now that we've actually sort of discussed each, let's look at
Mm-hmm.
them from a value add perspective. So first of all, neither have a family plan. Okay,
No.
at least not yet.
Yeah.
So the current rumor mill is talking about how plans for Game Pass families have leaked, and it would allow for one subscription to be shared amongst 5 people. Nobody knows about pricing just yet, but I would imagine it would be maybe $30-40 a month kind of thing. That makes the most sense to me, obviously, because it's essentially like 6 Game Pass subscriptions or 5, depending on how it's split. It might be 1 and then 4 others, or it might be 1 and 5 others. I'm not entirely sure just yet, but it's coming. If that is true and it works out the way we think it is, whereby if like with Microsoft Office, the way that works. So like I pay a subscription, for example, and then I have like my father on it, and I have my cousin who we've adopted on it. So I would imagine maybe it's something like that, where you have one family sub, and then you add members to it, and then they're automatically included, much like the way Microsoft Office works. If that's
Mm.
the case, it's going to be a game changer, because my understanding as well is that there'll all be Game Pass Ultimate subscriptions. So everybody gets access to Game Pass Ultimate, which is already
Mm.
just fantastic. I mean, it's day and date, first party titles. It's all sorts of new stuff. All gets downloaded to your console. If you're in a region where you can have cloud gaming, it's there. If you have a PC, you can use it on there too. It's just an incredibly well done service, and I think that a family subscription is going to drive up even more people into the ecosystem.
Most definitely.
Now, PlayStation and Nintendo don't have family just yet, but I would assume perhaps in the future they'll come down with something similar. I mean, it would be
Yeah.
silly not to. Family aside, which is just another benefit, by the way, if we look at just the services as they are, first of all, we've already argued that they're 100% sustainable. In fact, we would argue they're more sustainable than the conventional release of titles and earning money through that, right? You know, what I mean by that is, you have one. So take like Elden Ring, for example, right, which has done incredibly well. I think it's sold like 300 million copies worldwide.
Yeah. More than any other soft
It's
game
it's
ever.
it's done incredibly well, right? But now, how how long does that sort of sales continue? Once the bulk of people have bought it, how much longer does that stay as sustainable is what I mean. Whereas
Mm.
something like a subscription service, people buy it because it's a very low barrier to entry. I mean, $10-15 is nothing, right? It's like 3 cappuccinos a month, maybe,
Yep.
if that. And then you have access to everything without even thinking about it. And
Yeah.
over a year, the cost of the service is the price of one AAA title. So, for example, let's assume you wanted Elden Ring. The price of Elden Ring on console is the price of one full year of Game Pass, or what is going to be PlayStation Extra.
Yeah.
So, then you have to think to yourself, is it really worth it? Would you rather not pay for your subscription and then maybe get Elden Ring at a later stage when it comes down in price? Because we all know games come down in price within the first 3 months, at least by 15-20%. It's just the way the industry works. And what do you think, Ed? Like, what is your opinion on the whole value situation here and the
No,
sustainability?
I
Like, because like the argument I'm making here is that, if yes, Elden Ring has done well, and it's done well for various reasons, but most games don't do that well. So, is it not then more to their benefit to be on a service like this? Because I have
yeah.
seen evidence whereby people have said, yeah, the moment they went on Game Pass, their sales actually increased instead of decreased, because there's that huge
That's
perception that being on the service means that people then don't buy your game. Whereas I would beg to differ. So I, for one, and I'm just giving you my anecdotal experience, is I thoroughly enjoy City Skylines. And because City Skylines was part of Xbox Game Pass, I downloaded it. But then I went and I bought all the expansions at a slightly reduced rate because I'm a Game Pass member. but I bought them all because I love the game and I want to continue playing it and supporting it. So that then comes down to my whole thing of how, there's different revenue streams available to games such as DLC, right? But yeah, you were going to say?
Yeah, the thing is, I totally agree on what you said. Developers have literally come out and said that since they were on Game Pass, because we're talking games that existed out of Game Pass, went
Yes.
into Game Pass, and then exited again.
Yes.
Many developers have come out and said, and you can find the evidence everywhere, that their sales shot up thousandfold the moment they entered. And this is not Game Pass sales, not subscription sales. This is launch sales. This is
Yes.
actual copies of the game have shot up thousandfold the moment they entered and exited. So I
Yes.
don't know if something can be said about the games that
I know
stay on
why.
it.
I know why. I think it's because when they come in, right, people download and they play. And more often than not, people who like something will buy them. You'll buy it.
Yes.
It's easy, especially given how you're getting a discount as well, right?
Yeah.
So you buy it then. Or alternatively, you don't buy it, but you play it, and then all of a sudden you get a message, oh, well, actually, it's coming out of Game Pass, so if you want it, now's the time. Now, you've been enjoying it for several months. Of course you want to keep it. So you buy it at a reduced rate
literally.
again. And then you keep it.
Because
I've
if
also
you have
heard
Game
that,
Pass...
Yes. I've also heard that visibility is a huge thing, where these indie titles who go on other platforms are invisible, but the moment they hit Game Pass, all of a sudden people hear about them, they play them, they, and again, as Edward said, this can all be corroborated with quick Google searches.
Yeah, it's literally everywhere. I've actually been doing Google searches just to make sure that I'm not speaking out of my crack during every time you spoke. So it's easy evidence you could find everywhere. And it's just so fascinating to me that this is the case. Whereas other people from rivaling brands are arguing the opposite.
Yeah.
And it baffles the mind that people... Who will you believe? Some CEO guy pushing his new subscription service, or multiple developers stating differently?
So it is no secret that I am not a fan of Jim Ryan. Look, I've got nothing against him personally. I don't know him, so I can't have anything against the guy personally. And also that would be silly. I mean, don't know the guy at all. But I dislike the way he seems to be running PlayStation. And what I mean by that is, from what I have seen with the comments that he has made to publications about, for example, preserving games as art, especially old games. In his opinion, nobody plays old games anymore. And then there was huge backlash around that. And then they started, they then didn't close the PS Vita store and so on and so forth. So I think this is possibly an answer to that. Because isn't it interesting how the PS Vita store shut down and now they're bringing it back as part of a service where you can download and play them, right?
The moment they announced the shutdown, we were all like, oh yeah, that's coming. That's coming to PS Plus, if anything.
And that's fair, right? You have the catalog, so it's not really fair. People should still be able to buy this stuff if they want to. Much like how Microsoft does it. So I don't want to go down that path now, but I understand why they've done what they're doing, right? By putting all of these things into one bundle service, because, and this is the big thing here, and people need to really realize this, is the reason why they're doing this is because subscriptions are more than sustainable. So subscriptions are something that I love and hate, because certain things shouldn't have a subscription, okay? Certain software, like that one that I was talking about earlier, it makes zero sense for that software that I'm going to use once or twice a month to have a subscription model. I'd rather just buy it outright, and when I use it every couple of months, I don't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah.
But something like video games are very much like streaming services. You pay your sub, and then you watch what you want when you want to, or you play what you want when you want to. There's more on offer here. It makes sense. Yeah, is there anything you'd like to add there, Ed?
No, that's it. That's you summed it up quite nicely. Um,
So
the
what
common
are your I was going to say, what are your thoughts now on this whole thing? So you talk to me now, talk to us now about
mm,
what we've said here. Are video gaming subscriptions sustainable, right? Because remember, this is just our opinion at the same time. Sure, we might have
yeah,
we have done a lot of reading, but we're not really citing anything here. We're just also just giving our
no,
opinion.
of
So,
course.
overall, how do you feel about this? And like, what are your closing thoughts?
I do not mind subscriptions at all. I think they have a place, as all things do. As you said, as long as it makes sense for the software. Like,
Yes.
I use a camera app. I don't use the stock camera app at all on my phone. I use a camera app called Allied. Excellent app. This is not plugged or anything. But they have recently moved over to a subscription service. Now, I've been grandfathered in because I bought the app before, and I got like 3 years or whatever of the subscription for free. But um, it still baffles me that apps like this even need subscriptions. Um,
Mm, mm,
but beyond that, if we speak about the console subscriptions now, I do think they have a place, and I do think they give value. Even PS Plus, Essential, and Premium, and all of those, I think they do offer value. I just do not like the way they are presented, especially the PS versions of them all. Um, and on top of that, I do think that, or rather, I am glad that they do not take away from sales, as
mm.
some people are arguing. Let's say Jim Ryan, because his whole point is that it takes away from first party titles. It removes the quality of them, and if you believe that, I don't know. It's to me, it sounds like a rhetoric that someone like Jim Ryan would say, in order to sell his different products. Um, so I don't know. You can still buy your games if you want to buy them. You can still support the developers if you want to support them. You can be part of the subscription if your budget only allows to be for you to have the subscription.
Yes.
It's literally it just makes everything easier for everyone to have all of these options. I just do not like some of the limitations the new offerings have. That's it.
Yes. So, one point I just want to make quickly, which is a little bit different in terms of, when we talk about subscriptions, you make a very, very valid point here about how certain things shouldn't have them, but others are clearly designed around them.
Yes.
A great example of this is how Game Pass was designed as an all you can eat buffet of games, much like how I'm happy to see PlayStation Extra and so on and so forth will be very similar. That's
Yes.
good for everybody with a digital internet connection. But then you
Yeah.
brought up Halide, and you feel that it's a little bit ridiculous that a camera app should move to a subscription model.
Yeah.
This could potentially be a discussion for another day, but the gist of why a lot of software, now understand this is different to service, okay?
Yes. It's
Why a lot of
different.
software is getting subscriptions is because of the cost of development. In order to
Mm-hmm.
continuously keep something updated and good and going forward, it is preferable to have a subscription over a once-off buy, because that means consistent revenue, and consistent revenue means your team can grow and you can consistently improve something. All right?
Yeah. Look, from a business perspective, I totally get that. I still don't think that if you have a premium price attached to your product, to your premium product, as long as it's fair, I think it can also be sustainable.
You see, this is where I was leading, right?
Mm.
So again, now taking what we've just said now, right, about apps and services and so on, this is where consoles are in a very different space. And this is because the barrier to entry for a console ecosystem is much higher than
Mm.
software, for example. You have to buy a $300 or $500 console. Then
Mm.
once you've got the console, you have to have some sort of subscription in order to, well, really enjoy it, right? I mean, we live in an online world. Why wouldn't you want the benefits of free games every month, or to have a superior service, for example? Then you now have these value adds on top of the hardware. So it is very interesting and very different. But then if you look at it from a completely value perspective, this is where you begin to realize that being a PlayStation gamer is not as how would I phrase this nicely? Well, I mean, it's quite clear Sony doesn't want to be a budget option, so it's not really about budget. It's just they're not really the brand you want to go for value. Now, of course, that in itself is debatable.
For buck.
What do you determine what is valuable to you? Is a single player title that costs far more than every other, game available on other consoles more valuable to you than a subscription service that gives you access to that kind of a title day and date along with other games that you might find really interesting? Where does your value lie, I suppose, in the grand scheme of what is considered a value add? For me, it's very much, I've already spent so much to get into this kind of an ecosystem. So, given how the cost comparison is similar between the two, and in particular, we took away these two because the PlayStation one is, the Nintendo one is a little bit, you don't really need that at all if you want to enjoy your Switch. It's just for people who want to play emulation. Useless. So, it's not really a factor here. But you could also argue, take a PC person, for example. They spend a lot of money on hardware for their machine and they're very proud of it. They have a lot of benefits. I mean, they have Ubisoft Plus. They have, it's Ubisoft Plus. They have EA Origin. They have Game Pass. They have a lot of stuff. Speaking of, Ubisoft is going to be merging with Game Pass later this year as well. So just another benefit as to why Game Pass is going to be just really the service to have. But essentially, from that perspective, PC gamers really consistently win in terms of value. They're able to buy digital games super cheap through Steam sales or Epic Game Store, stuff that doesn't often happen on console. You'll often browse a console store and you'll see that a game is the same price as it was at launch and it's been 2 years later. That is a known issue, which again means that the value add of something like Game Pass, where those games are now on the service versus having to be bought, is really just the cherry on the top of what I hope these services will eventually become. Now, again, as Edward and I have said, we're not advocating for subscription, unless, of course, it makes sense. And in this particular circumstance, I believe we've given enough of a discussion around how they're more than sustainable in terms of why they're good from an economic point of view, not only for those people who are cash-strapped, but also for the studios and the companies who offer these subscriptions. And I, for one, am in favor of a future where subscriptions make sense, but also give you the most amount of value. And perhaps that is the real question here. And that is, how much value is the platform you're using giving you in the long term? And is that value, or their answers for why they don't have certain value adds, are those answers enough? Or should you as a consumer query why are they doing that when it seems anti-competitive and anti-consumer?
That's it.
That's it.
That's the question to end on.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. So there we go. We've reached the end of episode 85. Thank you, Edward. This was it went on for a bit longer than I thought it would, and
it really did.
As always, and perhaps maybe I explained a bit more than I should have, but I just felt, maybe somebody who's listening to this doesn't know about what these services are and they want to know a little bit more about them. I figured, well, let's actually talk about them and then go into why we feel they have value or they don't.
Exactly.
So yeah, for those of you who enjoyed this, we do hope that you will subscribe, and share. We do this bi-weekly, and if you'd like to see any of our previous episodes, please do see the link in the description below, and we look forward to possibly letting you hear from us again in a future episode. So thank you. Bye.
Bye.